I will say again, if any reasonable person reviews Exhibit 802, there can be no doubt in your mind what happened this night. There can be no doubt of the absolute terror of the two people in that car. The defendant controlled all the events. She chose the day. Specifically, she chose a day just before her 18th birthday. She chose to drive the car, the time to drive the car. She chose an obscure, previously scouted route through an industrial parkway. She chose the target to hit and the victims. She chose the means and the method to follow through. And she planned and purposefully executed the events of July 31st, 2022.
The judge looks directly at McKenzie Shirilla. The courtroom is silent. And then he says the words that will define the rest of her life. There's a very good likelihood, McKenzie, that you will spend the rest of your life in prison. She is 19 years old. Two people are dead. And the question that has hung over this courtroom from the very beginning, was this a tragic accident or a calculated murder, has just been answered. Permanently, irreversibly, in front of 3 grieving families and a judge who has clearly made up his mind long before he speaks a single word of his sentence. This is the sentencing hearing of McKenzie Shirilla. And before this morning is over, every explanation her family offered, every letter submitted on her behalf, every carefully constructed narrative about grief and remorse and teenage impulsivity is going to collapse under the weight of what a judge who sat through this entire trial actually believes happened on July 31st, 2022. Let's go back to the beginning. It is the summer of 2022 in Strongsville, Ohio. McKenzie Shirilla is 17 years old. Her boyfriend is Dominic Russo, a young man described by everyone who knew him as driven, selfless, intellectually curious, someone who read books every day, started 2 companies, recorded his own music, and had recently told his older brother he planned to join a branch of the military. His friend Devon Flanagan is 20 years old, adopted alongside his sisters from foster care, described by his mother as someone who made sure every person he encountered knew they were seen, that they were valued, that they were worth his time. A young man who had plans to go to barber school and open his own shop. A young man his 18-year-old sister would later stand in a courtroom and describe as the only person who had been by her side since she was born. On July 31st, 2022, both of them get into a car with McKenzie Shirilla. Neither of them gets out alive. The charge is murder, not vehicular homicide, not reckless driving, murder. Under Ohio Revised Code Section 2903.02a, a statute that requires the state to prove that the defendant acted purposefully, meaning she intended to cause the death of another person. This is not the standard for a car accident. This is the standard for a killing. And a jury of her peers, after reviewing all of the evidence, returned guilty verdicts on both counts. Now comes the sentencing. And sentencing hearings, for those who have never watched one, are different from trials in a very specific and important way. At trial, the question is guilt or innocence. At sentencing, the question is consequence. The judge has already heard the evidence. The jury has already decided. What happens in this room today determines how much of her remaining life McKenzie Shirilla will spend inside a prison cell. The families speak first. Jamie Flanagan, Devon's mother, walks to the microphone.
I am the mother of the victim, Davion Flanagan. I want to share a small part of what we lost on 7/31/2022. My son, Davion, is and always will. He gave to the world what he wanted most in his own life, love. The kind of love that would rescue a friend in the middle of the night, no questions asked, the kind that would protect others and honor them. He made friends easily with his infectious smile. He was a gifted athlete. He had plans to go to barber school and open his own shop.
And says something that will stay in the room long after the hearing ends. She says her son was so much more than cargo.
Davion made sure that everyone that crossed his path knew that he truly saw them, that he valued them, and that they were worth his time. Davion and my kids have had more than their fair share of heartbreak, of hardship, and of loss. Davion was adopted with his sisters from foster care. They are biological siblings. We are honored to be chosen, or to have been chosen, to be their parents. They're forever family. I am devastated by the loss of Davion. The world lost a truly special man. My girls lost their best friend, their protector, the one and only trusted family that has been by their side from day one.
It is a phrase she returns to twice, a phrase that tells you, without explanation, exactly what narrative the defense had been pushing and exactly what she thinks of it. Devon was not incidental. He was not collateral. He was a person, her person. And she stands in this courtroom and tells a judge and a convicted murderer that her son rescued friends in the middle of the night with no questions asked, that he showed kindness to the developmentally challenged, the less fortunate, the unvalued, that her girls lost their best friend, their protector, the one trusted family member who had been with them since day one. She says she prays daily for strength. She says she prays that McKenzie will find true remorse in her heart. The word praise does a lot of work in that sentence. Devon Flanagan, Devon's younger sister, is 18 years old.
As an 18-year-old, I hate the fact that he has gone because someone decided to take his life. Now that Davion is gone, I feel stuck. I feel as if I can't move forward. I feel lost. He was the one who picked me up when I fell. He was my best friend and the only person that has stayed with me since I was born. I would like you to give McKenzie the longest possible sentence. I've known her for about 3 years, and as she's always taken the easy way out. She will be eligible for parole.
She stands at the microphone and says she feels stuck, that she cannot move forward, that he was the one who picked her up when she fell. She was his biological sibling. They were adopted together. He was the only person who had been there since she was born. And now he is gone, because as she puts it simply and without decoration, someone decided to take his life. She asks the judge to give McKenzie the longest possible sentence, and then she says something that cuts to the heart of what makes this case so difficult. She says McKenzie will be eligible for parole, while her brother will be gone forever. Christine Russo, Dominic's mother, is next. She does not mince words.
No one wanted this to be a murder or to punish McKenzie Shirilla for this accident. But this was not a car accident. The evidence and science proved that McKenzie Shirilla murdered my son, Dominic, as well as Davion. There's no fix put in this case, as the Shirillas would like to proclaim. I want to thank Strongsville Police Department and the state of Ohio for seeking the truth behind this crash. Thanks to them, we all know what happened in that car that day. What we don't know is why. I wish I could change this every day. I lost 3 children in that crash. Not a minute goes by each day that I don't think about my son, as well as Davion. My heart is forever broken. The cries heard from the Shirilla family and friends after the verdict are nothing more than a lack of remorse.
She says clearly and directly, this was not a car accident. The evidence and science proved that McKenzie Shirilla murdered her son and Devon Flanagan. She tells the court that on the morning of the crash, she called McKenzie's mother, hysterical, and the first thing she was told was to not listen to what people were saying on Facebook. Her son was dead, his friend was dead, and social media was the concern? Angelo Russo, Dominic's older brother, reads a statement on behalf of his siblings.
Kenzie's statement in the hospital to Detective Azu, "Can't you just take my license away for 10 years or something?" That statement is McKenzie Shirilla. The most selfish person I know. Ironically, Dom was the most selfless person I know. McKenzie Shirilla murdered Dom and Davion in cold blood and had already moved on. Kenzie killed Dom over the thought of losing him, and she made Davion collateral damage. She was driving, going to concerts, and dressing up for Halloween, no thoughts of the families and lives that she had destroyed. As I said, Dom read a book every day. He started 2 companies. He recorded his own music as well as recording music with myself and with friends. Dom helped anyone who ever needed a hand. He was an inspiration to everyone who had the honor of meeting Dominic.
He describes a young man who started 2 companies, recorded music, helped anyone who needed a hand. And then he quotes something McKenzie said to a detective while she was still in the hospital after the crash. She asked if they could just take her license away for 10 years or something. Angelo Russo says that statement is McKenzie Shirilla. He calls her the most selfish person he knows. And then he says quietly, ironically, Dom was the most selfless person I know. Now comes the defense, and this is where things get complicated. Mackenzie's mother, Natalie Shirilla, addresses the court. She says she is broken, sad, and lost. She says Dom was the love of her daughter's life and was like family. She says the crash was a terrible, tragic nightmare accident that McKenzie has no memory of and will never emotionally or physically recover from. She asks the judge not to run the sentences consecutively. But then the judge interrupts her.
I'm hearing an awful lot about your daughter. I'm not hearing very much.
Oh, they all loved each other. They all spent every day together. You know what I mean? I don't know
And
too much
isn't that
for
part
him.
of the problem, Mrs. Shirilla?
Sorry?
Isn't that part of the problem, that they all trusted each other? Isn't that part of...
It's not a problem at all. It was
It's a
wonderful.
problem how they all ended up in the car together and 2 of them ended up dead.
I understand. I understand what it looks like. I'm saying that it was a tragic accident. She would never.
Well, we're going to have to disagree on that.
I understand.
Right. And I respect your position, but you disagree with me.
I understand. But anyway, that's it. I just wanted to address those. We told her to go to those things, and then she did go with Dom's family. So look at that. Don't look at it with the look on that with different eyes if you can, please.
Those things are not relevant.
Not at all. Not at all.
No,
Not at all.
I
But
agree.
she's a good. If you would have a moment, all you would need is 5 minutes of a conversation to have with her to learn who she is. Just that you would just need 5 minutes to learn who she is and what she's capable of not doing and doing, and you would see for yourself.
She has been speaking about her daughter, about Halloween, about concerts, about the shrine McKenzie allegedly kept of Dominic in her bedroom, and the judge says, directly, "I'm hearing an awful lot about your daughter. I'm not hearing very much about the 2 dead people." It is one of those moments in a courtroom where the air changes. Natalie Shirilla presses on. She explains the Halloween photos. She explains the concert. She says McKenzie was asked to go, that she spent 3 months in bed crying, that everything she did after the accident was either in honor of Dominic or to feel close to him. She says she told her daughter to go. She asks the judge to look at those things with different eyes. The judge says those things are not relevant. She says not at all, and then pivots to asking him for just 5 minutes of conversation with her daughter, because 5 minutes would be enough for him to see who McKenzie really is and what she is incapable of doing. McKenzie Shirilla addresses says she is deeply sorry. She says she would never let this happen or do it on purpose. She says she wishes she could remember what happened. She says Dominic was her soulmate. She says she wishes she could take their pain away. The defense attorney then makes his argument for leniency.
Ms. Leitner is asking you to consider that the brain is not fully developed until 25 years or older. Her choices, McKenzie's, and actions are indicative of teenage invincibility. While, based on your decision You don't find that. I find that there are. I remember when I was young, the dumbest things I ever did, and I'd hate to be judged for those things. So really now I'm going to give you my observations, because I understand what you talked with Mackenzie's mother about acceptance of responsibility, etc. All I can tell you is that from the moment I met this young lady here, she expressed sorrow. And I would say during the course of this trial, in the initial emails and statements, she said, "I'm sorry for what you did." The prosecutor has said that she hasn't accepted responsibility. Well, as you remember, during the course of this trial, our defense was that it was a reckless homicide. That's taking responsibility for what she believes happened. So I would respectfully disagree with that. I've seen her express true remorse in the times that I met her in jail, and I don't think it's self-serving. And I'm going to say, as an officer of the court, that I feel very confident saying that she has expressed true remorse. So ultimately, another thing that you have to ask for is the likelihood of recidivism, etc.
He notes Mackenzie was 17 at the time of the offense and 19 now. He notes she has no criminal record. He argues that the parole board will almost certainly deny her at least once, meaning a 15-year sentence becomes 20 at minimum anyway. He references letters from juvenile court staff who say she has been a model inmate, taken every class available, received the highest behavior rating consistently. He argues she expressed remorse from the moment he met her. The judge speaks.
Today is the sentencing of the defendant for the purposeful and intentional murders of Davion Flanagan and Dominic Rousseau. And in a way, it's the second time their families are gathered again to grieve. It's also a day when Mackenzie's family will grieve for the future of their daughter. All three of these families and the friends of these families are suffering, and all of their lives have been irrevocably changed because of the actions of the defendant. The unintended and collateral consequences of a selfish, intentional, and cruel decision by Mackenzie will ripple forever in time. It's literally changed history because it's ended two lives. Two young men are dead. Their deaths were horrible, terrifying, and tragic. I will say again, if any reasonable person reviews Exhibit 802, there can be no doubt in your mind what happened this night. There can be no doubt of the absolute terror of the two people in that car.
He starts by acknowledging the weight of the room. He acknowledges that all three families are suffering. He acknowledges that the unintended collateral consequences of Mackenzie's decision will ripple forever. And then he begins to dismantle, methodically and without cruelty, every argument the defense has made. He says, if any reasonable person reviews Exhibit 802,
the defendant controlled all the events. She chose the day. Specifically, she chose a day just before her 18th birthday. She chose to drive the car, the time to drive the car. She chose an obscure, previously scouted route through an industrial parkway. She chose the target to hit and the victims. She chose the means and the method to follow through. And she planned and purposefully executed the events of July 31st, 2022. The review of the evidence supports the factual findings, the forensic testimony, the testimony of the first responders, the testimony of the emergency room doctors who treated the defendant, the testimony of the coroner's medical examiner, the testimony of those who knew the victims and the defendant, and the testimony of the BMV official who provided evidence that not only did the defendant deny any medical condition when applying for her license, which her mother co-signed and attested to, but also that just after the accident, Mackenzie renewed her driver's license and again denied any medical condition.
there can be no doubt what happened that night. No doubt of the absolute terror of the two people in that car. Then he lists what the evidence shows Mackenzie chose. She chose the day. Specifically, he notes, she chose a day just before her 18th birthday. She chose to drive. She chose the time. She chose an obscure, previously scouted route through an industrial parkway. She chose the target. She chose the means and the method. She planned and purposefully executed the events of July 31st, 2022. He addresses the medical condition argument directly.
There was no medical condition that caused this as an accident. There was no mechanical failure of the car. The record is clear on the facts and the evidence. Her mother's uncorroborated statements without any medical testimony or records is not persuasive. It is also important to remember that even if McKenzie intended to also die in this crash, that is irrelevant. A failed suicide attempt is not a defense to murder. And even in a murder-suicide attempt, when the perpetrator executing the plan survives, the other death or deaths are still murder. There's only one person who's responsible for the pain of everyone in this room, and that person is you, McKenzie. Nobody else is responsible. This isn't the fault of Dominic's family, or Davion's family, or your family.
There was no medical condition that caused this as an accident, no mechanical failure. The mother's uncorroborated statements, without any medical testimony or records, are, in his words, not persuasive. And then he says something that stops the room. He says that even if McKenzie intended to die in the crash herself, even if this was meant to be a murder-suicide, that is irrelevant. A failed suicide attempt is not a defense to murder. When the perpetrator survives, the deaths are still murder. He looks at McKenzie directly. He tells her there is only one person responsible.
And I know that each of you have asked your questions to yourselves, what if? What if I had done this or that? The truth of it is, none of us can control the intentions of another. And when there is a purposeful intent to harm or kill someone, it is the perpetrator alone who bears the responsibility for the choice and the consequences and the harm that follows.
For the pain in this room, that person is her. Nobody else. Not Dominic's family. Not Devon's family. Not her own family.